right, call to order at 12:30. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. All right. Roll call. President Fish. Here. Vice President Burns. Here. Treasurer Wu. Here. College Council Rep. College Council Rep. Not.
He's online.
Nope. Not here. Senator DeLuca.
Here.
Senator Bob.
Here.
Senator Duvall.
Here.
Senator Thaw.
Here.
Senator Ramney. Nope. Senator Pellegrino.
Here.
Senator Bell.
Here.
Our advisor is absent. CFB.
Here.
Wildcat Media.
Here.
Factory Times. Okay, not here. Web.
Here.
Wildcat Media. Or Esports.
Here.
And then we don't have a Res Life rep. And our College Council rep showed up late. All right, moving on to the approval minutes of 5/29/21. Senator DeLuca.
I'd like to motion to table them for one meeting.
Do I have a second on tabling the minutes? Seeing no second, that motion dies. Oh, was there a second? Okay. Senator Baugh is the second. Moving on to discussion on the motion. Senator DeLuca.
I'm just following our standard. It's been less than 24 hours since the minutes have gone out, and I do not believe that's ample time to review them, which is why I made this motion. I yield.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to voting. Senators only. All in favor, please raise your hand. Right. All against, please raise your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. All right, that motion passes 6-0-0. We have no announcements. Moving on to guest speaker, Indiana.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm going to stand because I project better when I stand. My name is Indiana Almanzar. You heard me right. Indiana is my first name, like the state or like the movie, for those of you who remember the movie. You can call me Dr. Jones, Ohio, it doesn't matter. I respond. Unfortunately, if I hear a state, I know it's to me. So, you know, a lot of friends have all of that. So I just want to take about 5 minutes of your meeting time just to introduce myself, give you a little bit of my background so that you know the resource that you have available to you, because as I said during my interview here for SUNY Poly, this is your world, I just live in it, okay? So I have been in education going on 13 years. I know I do not look my age. So I am an education expert, and I have a range from early childhood education all the way up to the age of 65. So that is a really wide range, and I am very invested into the work that I like to do. The most experience that I have that I'm going to bring forward to you is from my previous position as co-director for community engagement at a nonprofit. And in that position, I led multiple national pilot programs. What does that mean? Pilot meaning they were first, no one had ever thought of them. I created the curriculum, I created the training, okay? One of them, which is the one that I feel like is really going to hone in on everything that you guys do, is the Teen Leadership Circles. So in New York City, the 5 boroughs, I don't know if you guys know New York City or the monster that it is, right, the jungle. I had 30 different school partnerships throughout the 5 boroughs. Within those school partnerships, I recruited 3 members for each organization, for each circle. And keyword recruited, because this is something that I want everyone to be invested in, which is the same thing that I'm gonna ask from you. I am only successful if you are successful. You are only successful if you show up and if you want to do the work. I cannot force you to do the work. I can only train you, right? So, and these were all teens. These were all from freshmen to senior year teens in high school. I went ahead and I trained them in everything leadership, from public speaking, developmental stages, how to run clubs, to the point that all of them concentrated on a specific area in their school that they felt needed attention. What does that mean? I don't know anything that they didn't know. All I did was give them the tools to be able to put that vision into action. That is my goal for you as well. So whatever trainings I feel or whatever loopholes I feel like we can go ahead and fill in or go around, that is what I'm here for, right? And I'm gonna go through I'm using my own description because I forget everything that I have done because it's been so much. Those 3 peer leaders, so from 30 school partnerships, again, voluntary, I started off with 100 peer leaders, only 80 got certified by the end of that year. Again, you show up or you don't show up. Your success really depends on you, right? I am here to support you in any way that I can. Other than the teen leadership circles, I was also in charge of the HSBC, yes, the bank. It was an international program with Girls Inc., the organization that I worked with, and it was a mentorship program. All of these women were in finance. A lot of my students didn't care about finance, right? They wanted to be doctors or anything else like that. My goal was to bridge that gap, and I did, to the point that those students are still in contact with those mentors. So one of the ideas is to go ahead and create the same thing for you here, so that when you graduate, you have someone that you can lean on for whatever information you might not already have. Now, other than that, I am also internationally certified as a speaker, coach, and trainer for the John Maxwell team. Whoever doesn't know John Maxwell, look up anything leadership, okay? He has the 21 laws of leadership, 15, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what does that mean? I can create whatever curriculum you want to create or programming for your clubs, okay? And I can make it successful and interactive so that they won't be boring. That's the other goal. I do not like boring trainings. I go to trainings all the time, and if my head is doing this, it is not successful, and I want to teach you how to make it successful as well. Now, I am also trained and certified by the National Association of Mental Health from New York City in trauma. So trauma-informed perspective. All of my programming, and hopefully your programming, once I train you in it, will have a trauma perspective. I define trauma as life. Anything that alters your stress is trauma. So for example, I went to the Butterfly Museum in Arizona, and there was this little boy and a butterfly landed on him. He was freaking out. He's like, oh my God. And the parents were like, oh my God, you're so pretty, right? Because they focus on the butterfly. For that child in the future, he might not like butterflies. That altered his immune system. That is trauma. So anything that really impacts you in any specific way is trauma, which basically means DEI, right? For DEI, we're gonna think about intentional and compensatory. So a lot of my goals too are to make it seamless so that you're not even thinking about it. So that when anyone comes into your clubs or organizations, it's already ingrained in the curriculum and the programming, as well as your training and expertise. My goal by the time that you all graduate, these are all transferable skills that you're gonna use for your careers, regardless of whatever career you are going into. You are always going to have me hear me say, where can you put that skill? On your resume, right? You're gonna get tired of me saying that because I want you to update your resume every single day as many skills. And as you guys are working in your organizations, I want you to take notes of everything you're doing, from flyers to media to running a meeting, all of that. Those are all skills that I want you to start adding to your resumes. And if you want any help on how you can, you're not sure if it's a skill you can, I know how. Go ahead and visit me at the Student Involvement Office with Jennifer George, and I will make time to help you with all of that. My goal again, sorry, I heard something. Oh,
That was
okay.
feedback.
Oh.
Keep going.
Okay, no worries. Interrupt me at any time. All right. Again, my goal, this is your world, I just live in it. My goal is to make you successful. A lot of people are getting college educations. So you're all gonna graduate with a degree, and you're all going to be competing with other people with the same degree. So I want you to stand out in a way that a lot of people don't know how. That is a lot and a little bit about me. I can go in more. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to ask. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it back to your student senate. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to executive reports, our president.
Hello everyone, I would like to welcome all the new faces that I see. I would also like to welcome back those familiar. The Executive Cabinet interest forms are now live. You can find them online on our Instagram in the link tree at SUNY Poly SGU, or you can contact me after this meeting and I have some hard copies of them, or you can email me at fishj@sunypoly.edu. Vice President Burns and I met with President Larson and Vice President of Student Affairs Mary Beth Lyon Tuesday, and we went over a few things pertaining to COVID and some of the student concerns. I've also been meeting with our CDO, Dr. Montgomery, to start a new project. It's a mentorship program for the students. And lastly, if you have not been vaccinated or you have yet to submit your vaccination information, please do so immediately. And let's just have a great year, everyone. Thank you.
Moving on, our Vice President. Hello everyone, I hope you had a great summer and welcome to the first in-person Senate meeting in over a year. The fall 2021 election interest forms and packet are now available. If you wish to be a senator or secretary, I highly encourage you to run in this election. If you are currently a senator and would like the opportunity to continue in your role, then you must run for re-election. The election packet containing important dates and information can be found on Engage in the SGU office or by emailing me at sguvicepresident@sunypoly.edu. The grace period for interest forms and signature sheets ends September 16th. Candidates are allowed to announce their candidacy during open forum of any SGU business meeting, including the meeting on the 16th. There are already a few people who have completed their signatures, so I highly recommend starting as soon as possible. Following the end of the grace period, the election will start on the 16th after the closure of the SGU business meeting and will go on until September 23rd, unless 10% of the student body isn't reached. Information on polling hours will be announced next week. Our next meeting will be held in the Student Center NPR at 12:30 on Thursday. Have a great rest of your week. Moving on to our treasurer.
Hello, hello. Welcome back everyone to the new semester. I am very excited to see how the turnout of this year, as almost everything is in person. Some updates I have are a few projects in mind that will need some follow-ups, and I'll be meeting up with AUX Services and Susan Head as soon as possible. I am looking forward to seeing you all on campus.
Awesome, thank you. We don't have a chief of staff, or a director of publication, or a director of community outreach, or a director of development, or a director of DEI yet. So college council rep.
Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing well. My name is Avnash, I'm the college council rep for SUNY Poly. I have a few ideas in mind that I would like to run through Jen George. I've also been working over the summer with a few people, and I plan to meet with Dr. Montgomery in collaboration with a future project he may have in mind. And I also plan to work with Melissa Press, she is the EOP coordinator, with an event that she has in mind as well. That's all, thank you.
We do not have a Res Life rep. Moving on to our advisor.
Hi everyone, I apologize for not being there in person and I hope to be able to join you next week. Welcome back, we're so excited to have you all on campus and to see your faces. It was great to see you earlier this week while I was on campus. I think it's going to be a really great year. I'm excited to work with this year's executives as well as all of the org heads and clubs. So very excited for this upcoming year. Very much looking forward to the upcoming elections and what our new team will look like. So welcome back everyone.
Thank you. We will skip committee reports as there are none on operation currently. Org reports. Webb.
Everyone, it feels great to be back in person again. So far we've held all of our events in person and they've all gone great. We haven't had any problems, especially with our first year casino night, which was a big feat for us. There were over 200 people there. We're also happy to announce that tonight we're resuming our free bowling trips. So it's going to be 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. at AMF Bowlerama. We're not planning on transportation right now, so you will have to find your own way there. This Saturday at 4 p.m. we're hosting a movie trip to Marquee Cinemas. That we also don't have transportation for, but if you would like a ticket, we still have some. Just reach out to me either after the meeting or shoot me an email. And we're going to be seeing Shang-Chi at 4 p.m. On Monday, September 6th, we're hosting our Labor Day extravaganza. We're going to have soccer darts, Italian ice, food trucks, and other yard games from 12 to 5 p.m. So be sure to join us. You all have off, so come have some fun. And then, as you all know, web is really new. We still need some officers or volunteers. So if you know of anybody that wants to get involved on campus, send them my direction. Thank you.
All right, CFB.
Alright, I am super excited to work with the clubs in person this year. I'm hoping to see a larger turnout in both the number of clubs and the people participating in club events. We currently have 5 activated clubs. They are Anime Club, Computer Science Club, Dual Academy, Baja, and Jazz and Hip Hop. Hopefully there'll be more in the coming weeks. My goal for the beginning of the semester is to clean out club closets and the other closets in the SGU lounge. Because they desperately need to be cleaned out. So if you believe you have anything in the closet, let me know so that it doesn't get thrown out. Thank you.
All right, Wildcat Media.
Well, over the summer we did a lot of work on our radio. We're going to have that up and streaming here soon. Looking for radio hosts. If you're interested in having your own radio show, it can be talk, it can be music, a combination of both. Please reach out to us. We're also looking for volunteers and executives for our organization. We run a lot of the live events and TV, radio, and sound stuff. We work a lot with web. So if anybody's interested in anything in that, reach out to us. I will have our email in the meeting minutes. It's wildcatmedia@sunypoly.edu. Thank you.
Awesome. And esports.
Hey everyone, glad to be back. So Wildcat Esports is currently recruiting for the fall 2021 season. Our recruitment form will close on the 12th. You can get that recruitment form on our link tree, which is SUNY Poly WCE. And since our League of Legends season will be beginning early, tryouts for that will be held on the 8th and 9th. However, tryouts for all of our other titles will be the following week on the 13th and 19th. And also recently we got a bunch of new equipment, which is going to enable us to host a multitude of events this semester, finally in person too. But we're also most excited to announce the return of FragFest. That will be on November 12th to the 14th. And we'll do our best to bring it back as close to as normal as possible, plus a bit more hopefully, while continuing to abide by current COVID restrictions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to another great season. I'd like to thank all of the incoming freshmen. We got tons of new support this semester. And yeah, if you still want to get in, you have a few days. You have 10 days. And can't wait for the season to start. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. That concludes work reports. Moving on to old business. Bill 2021-11, Senator DeLuca.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to modify the SGU strike policy. The purpose of this bill is to modify the SGU member requirements and disciplinary guidelines. The purpose of this bill is to amend Article XVI of the SGU policies and procedures, disciplinary procedure to include the formal disciplinary procedure. The purpose of this bill is to add an appendix to the SGU policies and procedures containing the official strike document format, the official warning format, and the official appeal letter format. I yield.
Excellent. Discussion on this bill?
Motion in the formal appeal letter to change explanation of why the strike should be appealed to explanation of why the strike is being appealed. An appeal is someone requesting, not someone changing.
Could you clarify which letter?
Formal appeal letter. Let me find the page.
Just clarify your motion.
Motion to change explanation of why the strike should be appealed to explanation of why the strike is being appealed.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion? Senator DeLuca? Any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, we will move on to voting on this motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All against, please raise your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. That motion passes 6-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Senator DeLuca.
Alright, I got a massive motion for section 16.2.0. So Vice President, how would you recommend I distribute this to the rest of everyone here? Because it's a large motion.
What do you mean? Would you like to log into the Blackboard and paste it there?
I can place the link there.
Okay.
And I'll yield for the time though.
Okay. Back to discussion while he does that. Would you like to make a motion now?
Yeah, I'd like to motion to replace section 16.2.0 with the attached document. I'll read it out for anyone who's unable to access it. As follows: 16.2.0, strikes can be handed out by the member's immediate supervisor or the president after obtaining approval from the member's immediate supervisor. 16.2.1, in the event that SU president is deserving of a strike, a majority vote from the Vice President, Treasurer, and Secretary will be required. The Senate reserves the right to hand out a strike to an SU Executive Board member in the form of a resolution addressed to the SU Executive Board upon passage with a 2/3 majority vote. 16.2.2, in the event that the SGU President would like to issue a strike, they need consent of the member's immediate supervisor. In the event that a member has multiple immediate supervisors, one supervisor's consent is adequate. The SGU advisor may override the immediate supervisor's signature. 16.2.3, the SGU President and Vice President reserve the right to issue strikes related to election-related offenses and professional development-related offenses without an immediate supervisor's consent. 16.2.4, in the event that an organization head would like to issue a strike to one of their members, they need the consent of a member's immediate supervisor. In the event that a member has multiple immediate supervisors, one supervisor's consent is adequate. An advisor of that organization may override the immediate supervisor's signature. 16.5.0, all strikes must be in written form acknowledging the strike. This form must be signed by the member receiving the strike, their immediate supervisor, if it is not the SU President, the SU President, and the SU Advisor. If a member receives a strike after the election begins for the spring executive election, the strike will roll over to the following year. Before you, I'd like to mention and thank Chris Ricard from Lab 4 working on this with me. I yield.
Do I have a second? Senator Baugh, any discussion on this motion? Senator DeLuca.
As this is a very large change, if anybody would like to motion for recess, please feel free to. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to direct it to myself or Mr. Ricari. I yield.
Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, put your hands down. All against, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down, and all abstain, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down. This motion passes 6-0-0. Welcome meeting.
Due to the most recent motion, I'd like to motion to table this for 1 week and encourage all senators and anyone interested to read all of the changes and make sure there are no errors.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca, any discussion on this motion? Does anyone oppose unanimous consent to tabling for 1 week? Seeing no opposition, this is tabled 6-0-0. All right, moving on to Bill 2021-48, Senator DeLuca.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to change the attendance requirement of CFB committee. The purpose of this bill is to require senators assigned to the CFB committee to attend the meeting at least bi-weekly. Before I yield, I'd like to motion to remove the first occurrence of quote, as long as it does not interfere academically in the methods section. I yield.
Did you make a motion? Within the motion? Oh, so I never asked for a second. Do I have a second on the bill? Senator Duval, awesome. What, that never happened. Do I have a second on the motion to remove the first bullet point and addition of the following bullets, correct? Could you clarify your motion?
My apologies, a little rusty. Remove first occurrence of as long as it does not interfere academically in methods. This is from the first bullet point on the methods because that is in 2 sections and it's redundant.
Do I have a second on this motion? Seeing no second, that motion dies. Back to discussion of the bill. Seeing no discussion on this bill, we'll move on to voting on the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. Or you may put your hands down. All against, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down. And all who abstain, you may raise your hand. Please put your hands down. This bill passes 6-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2021-49, Senator Pellegrino.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-49, policy change abolishment standards.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca.
We, the members of the student government at Utica, SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to require 3/4 vote to abolish the policies and procedures document. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Seeing no discussion on this bill, we move on to voting on the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down. All against, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down, and all who abstain, you may raise your hand. You may put your hands down. This bill passes 6-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2021-
Motion to do roll call vote for the remainder of these bills. I yield.
Do I have a second? To clarify, with roll call vote, you mean verbal?
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no second, that motion dies. Moving on to Bill 2021-53, Senator Bell.
Motion to accept Bill 2021-53, legislature's bill on it.
Do I have a second? Senator Ball.
We, the member of the student government and youth of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to require changes to policy to be read twice before it can be voted upon. I yield.
Any discussion on this bill? Seeing no discussion on this bill, we move on to voting on this bill. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. You may place your hands down. All those who oppose, you may raise your hand. You may put your hands down. And all who abstain, you may raise your hand. You may put your hands down. This bill passes 6-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2021-54, Senator, go ahead.
Motion to table discussion for President Pro Tempore from this week's open forum to 2 weeks following the swear-ins after the newly elected senators of the fall 2021 election.
Do I have a second on this motion? Senator DeLuca. Senator DeLuca.
May I question more of why specifically? Because normally you can maybe say instead just after the election, because it usually takes a week or so for us to nominate one. And also at this point in time, we're not in open forum. Just like to hear more feedback on it. I yield.
Mr. Harvey.
Webb.
You go yield with it.
Okay. So the whole point of changing it to 2 weeks following the newly elected senators is we're pushing more to be more inclusive. We don't want our organizations at least to just be hiring their friends. So we like to have a 2-week window of advertisement so everybody can be involved in the process. I also don't think, I will repeat what I said last year, I don't think it's appropriate with 6 senators to be choosing a pro temp, especially with the fall elections fastly approaching. And to allow 2 weeks is just giving adequate time for new senators, if they're voted into the positions, to get a feel for the job, feel for their position, and see if pro temp is something they're very interested in. So it's more of just giving a fair fight to everybody who would like, any interest in that. As well as we don't have that large of a senator pool right now, so I don't think not having a pro temp, will impact us greatly. I yield to Giovanni Harvey.
Mr. Harvey?
Hey everybody, I would just agree with Mr. Riccardi. I think, personally, I think that this election, the pro temp election, should be adhered to like the recruitment policy that we implemented last year. And I couldn't agree more with giving a 2-week grace period to allow more students to get involved. And I think it's important for us to recognize that we're back in person, and so there's more students who might want to get involved with the Senate and might be a senator and has skills, that might interest them in a pro temp position. So I fully support Mr. Riccardi's motion, and I hope the Senate follows suit in passing the motion.
Our advisor?
Hi y'all. Just looking at it from an equity and inclusion standpoint, we want to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity. As we're bringing in new Senate members, we want to make sure that they have the same experience and opportunities that everyone else who's currently sitting on the Senate has. Also, people who are sitting on the Senate right now would have to rerun. So I think that setting a precedent of voting on an election for a representative who may or may not be in that seat in the next few weeks can bring many challenges that we would like to avoid if at all possible. So I think being inclusive of everyone who has the opportunity to take part in this position is probably your best course. So I completely agree with holding off until 2 weeks after the elections have taken place and swear-ins are final.
Thank you. President Fish?
I'm going to basically just reiterate what everybody else said. Again, I think it's only fair and equitable that we wait the 2 weeks until everybody's elected and we get that settled in. Again, we don't have a large Senate, and I think the more people we have in that pool, the better. The more equitable it can be. And I'll yield.
You'll yield?
Yes, I yield.
Senator DeLuca?
Seeing no opposition, call the question.
Hold up. Do I have a second? Senator Fall? All in favor of the called question, please raise your hand. You may put your hand down. All against, you may raise your hand. You may put your hand down. And all who abstain, you may put your hand up. You may put your hand down. Call question passes 6-0-0. We'll move into voting on tabling the pro temp election for 2 weeks after Senator swear-ins. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down. All against, you may raise your hand. Please put your hands down. All who abstain, please raise your hand. You may put your hands down. The pro temp election has been tabled to 2 weeks after Senator swear-ins. Moving on to Bill 2021-54, mandatory open forum. Senator Thaw.
Motion to accept Bill number 54, mandatory open forum.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino.
We the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly as represented in the Senate, do and I as follows. The purpose of this bill is to write into policy when open forum start in our agenda. The purpose of this bill is to formalize the tradition of when open forum starts. I yield.
Any discussion on this bill? Senator DeLuca.
Just another item that came up in discussion from last time. It came up that what happens if we start at 1 o'clock as opposed to 12:30? Do we have any ideas, or do we believe this bill is adequate as is? I want to hear some feedback or discussion on that. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
At this point, I'm not really talking necessarily about Wildcat Media, but it's a student that may end up speaking in an open forum. Even if it does start at 1 instead of 12:30, I think we should, if necessary, push off some of our business to allow the students an adequate amount of time to speak their mind and be involved. I yield.
Senator DeLuca.
There is a section in this bill provision that a majority vote may change the adjournment time. This is not set in stone. So the 1 hour and 15 minutes is not like solid, so it can't be changed. It's just wondering, do we want to have any accommodations for what happens if we start at like 1 o'clock, which happens occasionally, or what happens if we decide to convene on a different day and time? Do we believe there might be a change necessary? I yield.
Any further discussion? Senator Paul.
Are you saying like so like let me think of my thought. So if there's like a student, so the attendance usually 150, right? Or 1 o'clock at 50, but like 45.
1:45.
And if there's a student have like their opinion before that, like this bill is saying like they gotta be at like that specific time, about 1 o'clock and 45 minutes, you know, is that what you're saying? What? Exactly.
Wildcat Media.
I now understand what Senator DeLuca was referring to. I think I misunderstood what was happening. I'd like to make a motion under methods 12.8.0 to change open forum shall start 1 hour and 15 minutes to open forum shall start 15 minutes before the scheduled ending time of the meeting. I yield.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca. Any discussion on this motion? Senator DeLuca.
We had an issue with that, which is why I originally worded it on option, because nothing's mandating when the meeting will end, and that also forces us to sit for 15 minutes of said time. So it was worded purposely on the opposite end from the beginning of the meeting time in case we end early. Also, in regards to Senator Dawes' discussion, this does still allow us to go into open forum early, for example, if we finish all of our business. That is in section 12.8.0, right at the end. It says as follows, or after discussion completes for new business, whichever happens first. Also, 12.8.1 mentions that, once again, that may be changed to my majority vote. This is, once again, just formalizing our policies to a degree. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
I guess I should have clarified. My motion would have kept the or after discussion completes from new business. I was just changing the 15-minute or hour and 15 minutes after to before to then.
Senator DeLuca.
I would once again reiterate, we purposely worded it from the beginning because the meeting end time is not set in stone. Like, we can end early, and that just happens. Or what happens if we have a meeting that is not on our normal Thursday? Like, what happens if we have an emergency meeting on a Saturday? There is no proposed end time for those ones. That is just however long it runs. Often they happen to be an hour. That is why this is worded in this way, to avoid having to worry about when does a meeting end? Do we have to schedule that? It's just a matter of we know when a meeting begins. I'll yield to our advisor.
Can you reread the motion for me? I'm sorry. I just need to hear it again, what you're trying to do.
My motion was to change methods 12.8.0. I'll just read the entire thing and what it would say. Open forum shall start 15 minutes before the scheduled end time of the meeting or after discussion completes for new business, whichever happens first.
Does that clarify?
It does. I think that Senator Luca has a point that we don't have a scheduled end time. That might be something that you either implement, and you can even clarify and say, you know, Senator DeLuca mentioned if it's a Saturday meeting or if it's, you know, an emergency meeting that doesn't follow our typical protocol, you could certainly say, like, you could say something about like your normal meeting time would normally end at 2, you know, no later than 2, and in the case of an emergency meeting, it ends following discussion, as John had mentioned. But I think that does pose a problem. It's a little bit of a challenge. I think we would have to look at what those details look like, because you can't just say, if we don't have an end time, you can't say 15 minutes for the end time.
Senator DeLuca?
At this point in time, I would recommend against this, voting against this motion, as the main intent of this bill is just to formalize or write into our policy when open forum starts. If we like to change or mandate an end time, we should possibly submit another piece of legislation or act this instead. So instead of muddying up this bill, I yield.
Any further discussion on this motion? Senator Paul?
Based on my understanding, I thought like most of the meeting ended 2 o'clock, and why would sometimes like student have class like right after the meeting? Like I feel like, right, that's how it usually ends, after 2 o'clock. That's like the end time usually. I yield to Mr. Luca.
The thing is, we don't really have a scheduled or mandated end time. Like, we say we run till 2, but sometimes we do run over. And that just happens. So this makes it so we stop at that time. That gives ample opportunity for open forum. And as I reiterated earlier, what happens if our meeting is not at our usual Thursday slot? What if we're having an emergency meeting or meeting on a different date and time? That is why this is worded once again to be from the beginning of the meeting, and based on what we have as precedent been 1 hour and 15 minutes, aka ending at 1:45. I avoided putting in 1:45 to avoid forcing an end time, just in case what happens if we start at 1 o'clock, or what happens if we start at 1 o'clock on a Saturday. This leaves a lot more wiggle room instead of being very strict. I'll yield to our advisor.
I think it's important to remember that your governing documents are really for the majority of your time, right? They're not meant to be restrictive. They're meant to give you a way to operate in an efficient way and to give order to what you're doing. There's always going to be exceptions. I mean, there's going to be an emergency meeting that pops up. There's going to be some kind of academic event that pushes you to not start until 1 o'clock. Like, those things are going to happen, but that's not the norm. So I think that we need to remember that when we're looking at our bylaws, we need to look at the majority of the time, our regular meetings. And then if we need to make stipulations and amend other parts of our bylaws to adjust, we can. But let's look at like big picture. Let's not get too wrapped up in details and experiences that may or may not happen. If we're looking at this type of a topic, I think that needs to be really general and really open and following our typical patterns.
Any further discussion on the motion? Senator Bob?
I'll just say that I'll have to agree with Senator DeLuca. I just think we shouldn't vote yes on this motion, because I think we're all just overthinking this. The reason why we have section 12.8.0 is just because we want to formalize something and we want to have something in our policies. And I want to remind everyone that there is section 12.8.1 that says that we can change the meeting time, or like the open forum time. So if we need to change it, we can make a motion during those meetings that might start later. So we don't really need to change anything on this bill, I think, in my opinion. I yield.
Senator DeLuca?
I'd like to reiterate once again that this is just formalizing our policies. The intention of this is not to change our policies, just getting it written in, and as we seem to be repeating ourselves, I'd like to call the question.
Do I have a second on the call to question? Senator Bob? Moving on to voting on the call to question. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, you may raise your hand. You may lower your hands. Call the question passes 6-0-0. Moving on, voting on the motion to change it from start time to finish to 15 minutes before the end time. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands, and all who abstain, you may raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This motion does not pass. 0-6-0. Back to discussion of the bill. All right, seeing no further discussion on the bill, we will move on to voting on the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 5-1-0. That concludes old business. Moving on into new business. Resolution 2122-01. Senator DeLuca.
For information,
Yes.
isn't 2021-18 first?
Yeah.
The liquidation bill?
Is it?
Resolution?
The resolutions, the first one in the pages of the,
Oh, is it?
I don't know if
Correct
it might
order.
be listed differently up top, but the
Okay.
pages scrolling.
Then we'll go by the order within the agenda. So 2021, Resolution 2021-18, Senator Duval.
Motion to accept resolution number 2021-18.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca.
We, the Senate of the SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve. Resolve, whereas each club that is inactive for more than 2 semesters is subject to liquidation per CFP policies and procedures. Therefore, be it enacted, the following clubs will be liquidated: finance, accounting, and business, SUNY Tech Gamers Club, WIAC Curling Club, Makers Club, SUNY Poly Fabrication Club, Open Source Initiative, Psych and Soc Club. Therefore, be it finally resolved, the clubs above may be liquidated. Thank you.
Any discussion on this resolution? Senator DeLuca.
Just got a question. SUNY Tech Gamers Club, I believe they renamed themselves to Video Game Club at some point, so I don't know if we would like to consider changing that to meet that, because, name differences. I'll yield to CFP.
Is my understanding, I was not the one to write this resolution, it was Chris's last one, is my understanding that SUNY Tech Gamers has a funds in an account labeled that, is what I understand, that the VGC funds have already been dealt with, but this is a separate line with money in it. I yield.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Wildcat Media.
Point of information, what is WIAC?
Would someone like to answer? Senator DeLuca.
WIAC, I believe it was West Indian African Club. It's one of the cultural clubs on campus. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Another point of information, is WIAC the actual name, or is what he said the actual name, because you want to make sure you get it right on the line that it's in?
Our advisor.
WIAC stands for West Indian African Club, but they typically were just WIAC. So their account probably says WIAC.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we will be moving on to voting on this resolution. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands, and all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. Excellent. This resolution passes 6-0-0. Moving on to resolution 2122-01. Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept resolution number 212201, cabinet confirmation.
Do I have a second? Senator Bell.
We, the Senate of the Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve the purpose of this resolution is to confirm Giovanni Harvey as the Student Government at Utica Chief of Staff. Whereas the Executive Board has nominated Giovanni Harvey to fill the vacant Chief of Staff position within the Student Government at Utica. Enacted, Student Government at Utica Senate considers and confirms the nomination of Giovanni Harvey as SGU Chief of Staff. Resolved. Be it resolved, contractual obligations pertaining to the cabinet position shall begin at the conclusion of the Senate meeting in which this resolution is adopted. And be it finally resolved, the Executive Cabinet of the Student Government at Utica will have an additional member to represent the students of SUNY Poly. I yield.
Any discussion on this resolution? Okay,
I'm just curious as to why this resolution was submitted by the Vice President and not the President, as the Chief of Staff is typically a right-hand man to the President.
I was asked by the President to write the resolution, as I have more experience writing legislation due to my prior roles. Senator DeLuca.
I'd like to hear a bit of the reasoning behind selecting of Mr. Harvey. I also believe he was interested in being a senator at one point, so I'd like to hear a little bit about the change of heart. I'll yield.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Senator DeLuca, for that question. The reason why I wanted to be the chief of staff, because I'm passionate about project initiatives and group work and things like that. And I've devoted all 4 years of my undergraduate career to student leadership and things like that. And you feel as though in the chief of staff position, I would really be more effective to help the executive cabinet and ultimately the executive board carry out their initiatives for the year, any projects that they might have, and so on. So I really am, passionate about the legwork that goes into, running an organization this size. And like I said, I think that my leadership traits and attributes would be best with the executive cabinet. I yield.
Senator DeLuca.
Hearing this in mind, and also the fact that you served as the executive assistant when that was the previous position, I'd like to mention I will be endorsing this resolution. I yield.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing no further discussion, we will move on to voting on the resolution. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands, and all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This resolution passes 6-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2021-67. Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-67, SU Policies and Procedures Amendment, hard copy agendas, minutes, and legislation.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. This bill pushes for more sustainable SGU by reducing the use of paper agendas and minutes for SGU Senate meetings, committee meetings, and organization meetings. This bill requires that all agendas and minutes are sent in a PDF form and are not to be printed unless special requests are granted. The purpose of this bill is to require all agendas, minutes, and legislation for SGU-related meetings to be in virtual format unless special requests are granted. The purpose of this bill is to reduce the use of hard copy paper agendas from all SGU-related meetings. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Senator DeLuca.
I'd like to ask, is the bill author present in audience?
He is not. Mr. Harvey?
The bill author is not present, but if I can speak on just behalf of this bill, I can to some extent. So, yeah.
Any further discussion on the bill? Senator DeLuca?
One of my concerns is mainly the mention of having physical copies of meeting minutes. If I'm not mistaken, we normally don't have physical copies of meeting minutes anyway, so I don't know how that would be a part of the requirements. I'd like to yield to Mr. Harvey.
So I just want to preface first, I don't know all the ins and outs of the bill. This is something that during Ari and I's term, this was discussed amongst us, so I have some understanding, but I think that point is referring to additional students requesting physical copies aside from the physical copy that is kept in the secretary binder. So I think that's what that point is referencing to.
Senator DeLuca?
I'd also like to question section 12.4.0, which says there shall be a maximum of 5 paper copies of the agenda minutes or legislation to be distributed to members of the audience at any SGU Senate meeting. 5 paper copies to be distributed to members of SGU upon prior request, and 1 copy to be printed for records. My concern here is, what if 6 members of SGU request printed copies? Will this be in conflict of that section, or would we like to consider maybe changing that? I yield to Mr. Harvey.
I cannot speak to that point, but I believe it is mentioned in the bill that a member can request the agenda and related documents prior to that meeting. So I'm not sure if that point that you just referenced covers that or not, but I believe there should be an exception for that. I'll yield back to Senator DeLuca.
Thank you. I believe you're looking at section 12.4.1. My apologies for not reading that. Members of SGU may request a paper copy of the agenda, minutes, or legislation from the secretary no later than 5 p.m. on the Wednesday before the meeting. However, that does conflict with the previous section, which says 5 paper copies. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. Can you mention otherwise, or do you see very similar? I'll yield to Mr. Hart.
I can certainly understand what you're saying. I can't provide any other comments on that. So I think at this time, if you feel there's a motion that needs to be made to rectify that, I think that's more than appropriate, but I can't speak any further. And I will yield to Welshman Media.
If there are more than 5 people that need, for some reason, to have a printed agenda, I don't think that we should be printing that many. I mean, they can share, they can print their own, they can bring a laptop. I yield.
Mr. Harvey?
I can agree with the sentiment that Mr. Mulvick just made, but I don't think that sharing paper copies would be ideal given the circumstances that we're in. So I would encourage, actually, if Senator DeLuca has a motion to maybe change that, I would encourage the Senator to make that motion, but I don't think it would be appropriate to share copies and things like that. We want to stop the spread.
Senator DeLuca?
I have to agree. At this time, I'm still developing that motion. At this time, this bill also happens to be new business, so we don't have to vote on it this week. So I like to reserve time next meeting to make that motion. Now yield.
So any further discussion on the bill? All right. Moving on to Bill 2021-57, Senator Duval.
Motion to accept bill number 2021-57, Student Organization Appendix Correction. I yield.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca?
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to correct Article 5 of the SGU Policies and Procedures. The purpose of this bill is to list the correct appendices for the format of a student's organization's constitution and policies and procedure documents. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Senator DeLuca.
In the House rules, can I ask for the word "and" and the purpose, what says "and student," to be changed to "a student"? As I believe does not change the intent of the bill.
Yes, you may. Any further discussion on the bill? Senator DeLuca.
Seeing as this is a fairly small change, I'd like to motion to mark this for immediate attention.
Are bills allowed to be marked for immediate attention anymore?
Any bill that was on the agenda at the time of the speed limit is exempt.
Are you going to mark that for immediate attention?
It'll be marked, yes.
This is now marked for immediate attention. We may now vote on it.
Point of order, we have to vote to mark.
Have to vote to mark. That was fun. All in favor of marking, please raise your hand. Excellent. You may lower your hands. All against marking, you may raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all against, you may raise your hand. You may lower your hands. That motion to mark passes 6-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Seeing no further discussion on the bill, we'll move on to voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 6-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2021-58. Senator Ba.
Motion to accept bill number 2021-58. Appendices list.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca.
We, the members of student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to add a list of appendices to Article 27. Appendices. The purpose of this bill is to list appendices which are in the appendix section. I yield.
Any discussion on this bill? Senator DeLuca.
Just makes stuff easier for future. To motion to add a following bullet. To add a bullet under methods, which reads as follows. Addition of the following sentence to Article XXVII, Appendices Section 24.1.0. In the event that an additional appendix is added, the list below shall automatically be updated. I yield.
Do I have a second on the motion? Senator Baum. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting on this motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This motion passes 6-0-0. Would you be willing to clarify the motion one more time, just so it's clear for the record?
Motion to add the following bullet under methods. Addition of the following sentence to Article XXVII, Appendices Section 24.1.0. In the event that an additional appendix is added, the list below shall automatically be updated.
Thank you.
I yield.
Back to discussion of the bill. Senator DeLuca.
Seeing as this is a fairly cosmetic change, I'd like to motion to mark it for immediate attention.
Do I have a second? I'm marking this. Senator Baum. Moving on. Do we have any discussion on this motion to mark? Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting to mark this for immediate attention. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. Motion to mark passes 6-0-0. This may now be voted on today. Back to discussion of the bill. Seeing no further discussion, we move into voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 6-0-0. Moving right along to Bill 2021-59. Senator Duval.
Motion to accept bill number 2021-59, SU Policies and Procedures Amendment, Poster Policy Amendment.
Do I have a second? Senator Bell.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to require giveaways and the value of the giveaway to be stated on posters.
Any discussion on this bill? Senator DeLuca.
I'd like to motion to add the following sentence to section 23.6.0. The value of the prize must be listed at their MSP value in dollars, open parentheses, $sign close parentheses.
Do I have a second on this motion? Seeing no second, that motion dies. Moncat Media.
Under methods, 23.2.0, motion to change where it starts from organizations posters. Organizations shall be limited to posters that are 8.5 by 11. Motion to change that to 11 by 17.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca. To clarify, it's 11 inches by 17 inches.
Correct.
Senator DeLuca.
I have to speak against this motion as that is not the purpose of this bill, and we want to avoid muddying or, putting a lot of, art or whatever into these bills, and I recommend creating a different bill or policy to make that change. So I recommend voting against this motion. I yield.
Mr. Harvey.
I actually want to speak in support of Mr. Molovich's motion. I think there's something to be said about including that size in there. This policy is going to govern both clubs and organizations. Our organizations have a bigger responsibility at providing big events to the campus, and I think they should be allowed to showcase that with that size. So I fully support changing that to 11 by 17. I yield.
Esports.
I'd just like to say that I fully support Chris in saying that he doesn't want to muddy this bill. This is entirely changing the purpose of this bill. It's supposed to be fully focused on giveaways. So as much as I like this motion, I think it'd be best introduced in a separate bill. I yield.
Any further discussion on this bill? Mr. Harvey.
So I just have kind of a question. So if John's or Mr. Molovich's motion is made into a separate piece of legislation, wouldn't this piece of legislation have to be amended?
Your answer would be correct.
Okay, so I think we should just then include Mr. Molovich's motion, because I feel like amending a bill that's already passed, that's gonna muddy more waters than just including the motion right now. So again, I would like to speak in support of Mr. Molovich's motion.
Any further discussion on the bill? Senator DeLuca.
I'd like to thank Mr. Senator for mentioning that it is interesting change, and I would agree with the change. However, once again, I'd like to reiterate that it is not within the purpose of this bill, and that is the reason why I will be speaking and voting against it. I will support this if it is proposed in a new bill or document, however, not at this point in time. I yield.
Mr. Harvey, is your hand still raised, or?
No, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the bill? Sierra?
I would like to say that I support this because many organizations and clubs are making bigger posters that are needing for events, including Wildcat Sports. So we believe, or I believe, that this should be supported now, because if it's ran in a different bill, it would take longer to pass it. I see this being passed like in the end of September, if it's not being passed now. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Just to clarify, this is not going to affect clubs. It's the organization's part of this. But based on everybody's opinions, I think this is very decided on, so I'm going to call the question.
Do I have a second on the call to question? Senator Pellegrino. We'll move on to voting on the call to question. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against the call to question, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands, and all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. The call to question does not pass. 0-4-2. Back to discussion on this motion. Senator DeLuca.
Hearing the mixed fact that this does take time, would Wildcat Media consider potentially also modifying their motion to change the purpose? I'll gladly vote yes in that case. However, not if you simply change just the minutes.
Mr. Harvey?
I personally don't see the point in changing that. I think the purpose of this session right here is to review legislation, make the necessary changes that we see fit. So I just feel like changing the purpose, we're still accomplishing the same goal. So I don't see how that would be any different to change the purpose rather than just amend that point that Mr. Mulligan's making. I think this right here is, again, muddying the waters, a very simple fix. You know, I feel like this is just very simple as killing two birds with one stone in this piece of legislation. Or this motion, excuse me.
I just wanted to speak on the size part. Clubs are not allowed to use the larger size posters. They're only supposed to use the smaller ones. And so only the organizations are allowed to use the larger ones. And if this bill is stating a specific size that can be used, I can understand where Wildcat Media is concerned to come from, because then that would shrink the size of the organizations to be allowed to use. Yield.
Wildcat Media.
Motion to, actually I'd like to amend my motion to also include changing the purpose of this bill. The purpose of this bill is to amend the poster policy. That kind of overall does it. Yield.
Do I have a second on this amendment? Senator DeLuca. Any discussion on this amendment? Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting on the amendment. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This amendment passes 6-0-0. Back to discussion on the motion. Sharon.
Can I say something? Is it unlimited? Are you suggesting unlimited amounts of 11 by 17 for orgs?
No. So,
Wildcat Media. Questions directed to you.
It's not, right now, it's limited to a size of 8.5 by 11.
Oh.
I'm trying to up that size to the 11 by 17.
Okay, my only concern is the size of the cork boards, and just thinking of that, all orgs are able to do 11 by 17, they probably won't leave a lot of room for clubs, just a thought. Just a thought. So there might be something that needs to be separate that really breaks down, you know, as far as orgs go as well. Just a thought. Anyway.
Senator DeLuca.
Also like to mention that this is mandating that orgs use a different size, where maybe we like to potentially consider making it a choice if they like the smaller size, especially considering bulletin boards space is limited. Also, I'd like to motion to move open forum to after discussion on this bill.
Do I have a second on that motion? Senator Duval. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes 6-0-0. Back to discussion of the previous motion.
Point of information, my original amendment passed.
Your original amendment passed, so now we're back to your amended motion. The motion to move open forum after this bill, discussion of this bill, that also passed.
The motion to amend my motion would say, regardless of the point, organizations shall be limited to posters that are no larger than 8.5, or that are no larger than 11 by 17.
11 by 17 inches?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion, or that amendment? Senator DeLuca, any discussion on this amendment? Senator DeLuca.
Can we specify size range? Because there was an instance in the past where a group previously printed posters like yay big. I doubt it's going to happen, but can we maybe set a lower limit and an upper limit, perhaps? I'll yield.
Wildcat Media.
I see no point in that. I mean, if you want to hand out Post-its, go for it. It's not going to
President Fish.
Yeah, I have to agree with Wildcat Media. I see no point in that. I think we're kind of thinking about it too deeply. I yield.
Mr. Harvey.
Can I entertain a call to question on the motion?
It will be on the amendment.
On the amendment, excuse me.
Wildcat Media.
Point of clarification, can you reread the newest motion? It's hard to hear from here, I'm sorry, I'm trying really hard to keep up, it's just hard to hear.
Do you want me to just reread the paragraph?
You can reread the paragraph, the amended paragraph.
Okay. I'll start with organizations in that paragraph, because the first one's about clubs. Organizations shall be limited to posters that are no larger than 11 inches by 17 inches unless the flyer is advertising multiple events or the cost of the event surpasses $10,000. A maximum of one flyer per flyer design per event is allowed.
Excellent. Back to discussion on the amendment to the motion.
Point of information, did that call to question ever receive a second? It was moved to the floor.
It was seconded, or
No,
moved?
Allison moved. I would go
Senator DeLuca seconds the motion, the motion. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the call to question? Seeing no opposition, the call to question passes 6-0-0. Moving on to voting on the amendment. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. The second amendment passes 6-0-0. Back to discussion of the motion. Seeing no further discussion on the motion, does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the motion? Seeing no opposition, that motion passes 6-0-0. Any further discussion on the bill? Senator DeLuca.
I'd like to motion to end discussion on this bill.
Do I have a second on the call to question?
Point of order, that's not a call to question.
End discussion.
Call the question means we vote on the bill. And discussion does not.
Do I have a second to end discussion? Senator Duval? Do we have to vote on this?
2/3.
2/3. We'll move on to voting on the end discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All who are against, you may raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. Discussion has ended on this bill. It has passed 6-0-0. Moving on to open forum. Webb.
Hello everyone. I was testing out the new QR code from Engage. So this QR code right here is for the Senate meeting. I think in good spirits of contact tracing and everything, you can all just scan this, sign in, and be recorded for being in the room for the meeting. That would be great.
My
I also have a question for a previous bill. Like right now it's getting quite a bit late. About the bill that you start at 1 p.m. Is that only for emergencies meetings or is that for every meeting?
For the bill that starts at 1 p.m.
Yeah, the meeting time start 1 p.m.
Senator DeLuca, would you like to clarify?
To clarify, that bill does not say we start 1 p.m. That was just an example. If we start at 1 p.m. or we have an emergency meeting, it mandates that we end an hour and 15 minutes after our start time. So if we start at 12:30, sorry, not that we end, that we move into open forum at that time.
All right.
So there's no mandating a start time. That just says we have to move into open forum at X time, or if we make a motion for that, but that I'll end here because we should be reserving discussion for that during the bill. I too yield to Pete.
I'll be recognized as myself. I'm not that familiar with SGU's financial policy, but I was curious if there was anything in there requiring a certain percentage of the student activities fee to be spent each semester. If yes, will that be a problem this semester given how few clubs there are and how relatively low on campus student population is? I know there's a cap on reserve. I know that any money not allocated is put into reserves. Is there a cap on the reserves? If yes, will we hit that cap? I yield.
Treasurer, would you like to answer?
Regarding about the student activities fee, I don't think we have anything about that percentage. And can you repeat the second part of your question?
I know any money that's not allocated anywhere is put into reserves. Is there a cap for that? And if yes, then will we hit that cap?
There is a cap on the reserves, and I believe we have hit the cap before, but we kind of made it pass somehow. So it was during Garrett's time, so I'll hand it over to Jan George.
Right, Sean. I got you. So we have hit the cap on multiple occasions. The cap is more than 1 year operating budget. So whatever our operating budget is that year, our reserve should not go past that. If it does, there's not really penalties or whatnot that would come into play. It's just that we need to spend that down and reinvest that money back into our students and their experience. So it's not tragic. There's no trouble if we do go over. And I think that the past, year and a half has caused us to very quickly increase our reserves based on our limitations for programming and events and opportunities outside the classroom. So I think that we're going to have a big year with a lot of opportunities to have maybe some bigger events or some more investment in opportunities for students on campus. So I challenge you all to start thinking about what that could look like and how we could utilize those funds to create a great experience for our students.
Wow, Media.
So this is not really going to affect too much. It's just kind of a thing that we should do. I've noticed in the agendas that we've been putting Wildcat Esports below Res Life. This is from when they were not an organization. And I'd like the motion for the remainder, or for all agendas moving forward, that Wildcat Events Board be put with the rest of the organizations. Or Wildcat Esports, sorry.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Point of information, the internet was cut out. Can you repeat that motion?
Not in the call.
Could you repeat the
Or whatever was just said, the internet was cut out.
The motion was to move Wildcat Esports to within the other organizations in the roll call. Right now, they are after Res Life.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Point of information, are we allowed to make that change? Because that change has been done using policy, so we may need that bill for that.
Our advisor.
So you are able to do that because when they were added to the agenda originally, they were not an official organization. They were a group that was sponsored specifically on like a special project through student government. So now, I mean, it's been a year, but since they are an organization, they should be qualified under the organization listing, and that follows your own policies and procedures, so there's no problem in doing that.
I would like to further clarify. I understand what your question was, I believe. And in the roll call of the policies and procedures, it just says roll call. It does not define the order in which people or organizations should be. So, in theory, you can do it however you please.
Do I have a second on that motion? Senator DeLuca? Does anyone oppose the unanimous consent in the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes 5-0-0. Senator DeLuca.
Because we skipped committee reports, I'm going to read food committee's report. Hello everyone, welcome back. There were some changes to staffing at Sodexo over the summer, and they have a new leadership team. SGU Food Committee would like to welcome General Manager Deborah Hansen and Executive Chef Mike Tomatillo, I apologize for butchering names, to the campus. They are extremely interested in hearing feedback, good or bad, from members of the campus. Keep an eye out for them when the committee starts and when they visit our meeting as guest speakers. We also have some updates in regard to some food services venues on campus. Mayo Cafe will soon be opening from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Thursday. Some unique food and drinks will be coming to the cafe, from sushi to a custom mixed energy drink made to order. Starting Tuesday evening, Polly Pizza is back. It will be opening from 9 p.m. It will be open from 9 p.m. to midnight, Monday to Saturday. Oodles in the Student Center will unfortunately be closed for now due to staffing. Lastly, progress is being made on Lounge 12 in Hilltop Hall. If everything goes to plan, we may see it open in the future. Now for our quote of the week. Food is our common ground, a universal experience. James Beard. How you hold on.
Anyone else have anything for open forum? Mr. Giovi.
I recommend that we allocate all Sodexo employees to Oodles.
Jen, is your hand still up or?
I recommend that we adjourn because we're about to be late for class. Gotta entertain to adjourn, please.
Swear-ins.
You want? Do you want to swear?
Oh, yeah. I think I do want to swear in. I'm sorry.
Jerry, did you have something?
I just wanted to clarify earlier, the WIAC, W-I-A-C, they changed their name to Multicultural Student Union. So we just have to make sure that they also have been active in the 2 semesters.
I don't think they have. I don't think they have in the last 4
But I just
either.
wanted to make sure that that was like the current name.
Okay, I can double check that after this.
Senator DeLuca.
Quick motion, move and swear.
Do I have a second on the motion? Senator Bob, does anyone oppose unanimous consent when moving into swearing? Sierra? Wait, can a non-voting member
Nope,
oppose?
only senators have the authority to second.
Checked. All right. Seeing no opposition, that passes 5-0-0. We move into swear-ins. Our Vice President, our President, go for it.
Yep.
All right.
Go in the center. Oh, front center.
Really?
Mr. Harvey, can you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I see your
I, Giovanni Harvey.
One at a time.
Yeah, one at a time.
You first? What? Go ahead.
No, Mr. Harvey.
We're
first.
doing it
Harvey
together.
first.
I apologize.
Oh my God.
I apologize. I state your name.
I, Giovanni Harvey.
Will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica Constitution
Will faithfully uphold the student government of the Constitution
and carry out the duties of state your organization and position
and carry out the duties of SGU Chief of Staff
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and will represent the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner.
and will represent the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner.
Congratulations, Chief of Staff Gio.
Let's go next.
All right, raise your right hand. I state your name.
You go to the camera over there.
I have to look at the camera?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh my God.
You're on the spot.
I state your name.
I, Sierra Pena.
Will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica Constitution
I will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica's Constitution
and carry out the duties of your organization and position
and carry out the duties of Wildcat Esports Publicity Coordinator
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and represent the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner.
and represent the, oh my God, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Do you want me to repeat that?
Yes, please.
and will represent the students of SUNY Poly
and represent the students of SUNY Poly
in a fair and unbiased manner.
in a fair and honest manner.
Congratulations. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Peter Giove,
Will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica Constitution.
will faithfully uphold the what he just said.
Student government at Utica Constitution.
Student government at Utica Constitution,
And carry out the duties of.
and carry out the duties of
State your organization and position.
Wildcat Esports Event Coordinator
To the best of my
to the
ability.
best of my ability.
And will represent the students of SUNY Poly
I will represent the students of SUNY Poly
in a fair and unbiased
in a
manner.
fair and unbiased manner.
Congratulations and welcome everyone.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Wildcat Media. Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent on adjournment? Seeing no opposition. Adjournment passes 5-0-0. We are adjourned at 2:01 p.m.